Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome in to the latest edition of Tider Insider TV. As you heard, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, also now known as Visit Tuscaloosa. I'm Gary Harris alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, and Rod, Alabama football just keeps on proving the doubters wrong. Crimson Tide, by many, left for dead after week 3 of the season. But this past Saturday, Alabama clinched the SEC West Division title, meaning that the program that won the first SEC West championship back in 1992, Rod, also will win the final SEC West. Have you thought about that? Because next year, with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, there's no divisions. It's fitting. This is Alabama, by the way. Veterans being honored there in Lexington, and then the Tide went out and honored the great legacy and tradition that is Alabama football by popping a quick 21 points on the Wildcats and then just cruised 49-21. As I said, with the victory, Alabama's in the SEC championship game December 2nd in Atlanta against those Georgia Bulldogs. Now, Jalen Milroe continued his recent dominance as he's lighting it up. He was responsible for 6 touchdowns in the game, 3 via rush and 3 passing against the Cats. And a total of 10 receivers had at least 1 catch on Saturday, so he spread it around. Ty Simpson got in the fourth quarter, and he looked good, too. Alabama scored on its first 2 possessions, actually its first 3 possessions, 2 that they drove down, and then Alabama got a fumble recovery to set up the third. On the verge of blowing Kentucky out, it was 21-0. The Wildcats were punting again. And Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's had some issues, Jalen Milroe took a helmet to the thigh in that game. He muffed a punt, and that gave Kentucky a touchdown. At least kept it from getting ugly early. Caleb Downs, man, 12 tackles. He's a tackling machine. And Rodney, let me get your thoughts on this game with a lot on the line. You know, a chance to go ahead and clinch the West. Yeah, you still have to go to Auburn for the Iron Bowl next week at Jordan-Hare. But you know already you're going to Atlanta to play the Georgia Bulldogs for an SEC championship.
Well, I think, Gary, the one thing that we talked about even last week on the show was that how would Alabama respond after that game with LSU? You know, an emotional game, obviously. Then all of a sudden you have to turn around. You go on the road for an early morning game there at Kentucky. And, you know, I think a lot of us felt like maybe Alabama gets off to a slow start, but they eventually take the game over. Kind of just the opposite. I mean, they dominated from up front and really did a tremendous job. I think it's a little bit of a sign of maturity for this team. Mm-hmm. You continue to see it grow week to week to week.
But there's just enough that they didn't do well. Nick Saban and that coaching staff probably happy about it, to be honest with you. If it's 42-0 at halftime like it looked like it might be, maybe the players say, hey, man, we've arrived. Not now. You had McKinstry, who Saban said is still going to be the punt returner, muff a punt. You had Jalen Milroe. It wasn't as much a bad throw as it was just a poor decision. Instead of stepping out of bounds and putting the ball away, tried to throw it back across his body. That was a bad interception. You still had some penalties that kept drives alive. And then late in the game, you didn't have a good run fit. The kid pops off a long run, which led to Kentucky's final touchdown, which maybe shouldn't have been a touchdown. A little like Kristen Story, who missed a tackle on the play, then made a great play to knock the ball loose, and they did not review it. Kentucky wound up scoring on the next play. But there's enough there that the coaches can come back and say, hey, listen, we still got a lot of stuff to clean up.
Yeah, I think that and they're going to need to do that because obviously when, you look at Chattanooga this week, but then all of a sudden you go on the road to Auburn where you know what that's going to be.
Crazy.
And then all of a sudden you go the next week you have the SEC championship game, Georgia, who might be the best team in the country. They've got a lot to clean up, Gary, but again, I think a lot of things that we saw were really encouraging. And you talked about that interception. I think that's a great opportunity for Milroe to making that throw and learning from that mistake.
All right, Ronnie, we'll get back to Alabama moving forward in a moment. But right now, it's near the end of the season, and that, of course, means awards time. Multiple Alabama players named semifinalists for different honors. Dallas Turner was placed on the list of the Bednarik Award, which is given to college football's top defensive player. Turner leads Alabama with 10.5 tackles for loss and 7 sacks. Those are good numbers. And, of course, Jalen Milroe now has established himself as one of college football's most dynamic quarterbacks with 16 touchdowns, and he was named as a Maxwell Award semifinalist, which is given to the nation's top offensive player. He was also named a semifinalist for the Davey O'Brien Award this afternoon. That's presented to the nation's top quarterback. After a couple, 3 weeks, who would have ever had any idea this was going to happen? And the finalists for these awards will be announced on November the 28th, and winners will be announced on December 8th on ESPN during the College Football Awards Show. Honorable mentions go out to Will Reichard, named a semifinalist for the Lou Groza Collegiate Place Kicker Award, and Kool-Aid McKinstry and Dallas Turner, who were named semifinalists for the Elliott Impact Trophy as well. So a lot of good stuff here. I think it's the Ronnie Lott Impact Trophy, but a lot of good stuff for these Alabama football players. Now, let me bring Ronnie back in as we talk about the rest of the season. Obviously, we're anticipating a win over Chattanooga. We'll have our score predictions, but I don't think anybody that's normal is picking an upset there. But next week, if you can win it, Jordan-Hare, then you're playing Georgia for what I think will be a spot in the college football playoff, regardless of what some people say. But that game's looming. We'll preview it next week. But what do you think the chances are that Alabama can finish off this season with 3 wins and get into that CFP Final Four?
Well, I think the way they're playing, they're continuing to get better and better each week, and I think that's what makes this week against Chattanooga so important, Gary, because Nick Saban said it. You have a rhythm, you have a momentum, you're getting better and better, you're developing, and this is an opportunity, I think, for them to continue to take another step, because I tell you what, I think this team, even though we've seen them improve, we talked about some things that they have to clean up, but I'm saying I think this team has a chance to be even better in 3 weeks when they play Georgia. You may say, well, they have to be, but I'm talking about the development of this team. I still think, as you said very early in the season, the ceiling on this team, I don't think they've gotten close to it yet.
Yeah, we talked about it. If Alabama can just get to November and November matter, they're going to be a lot better team. They got to November matters, and this team is peaking. What about Jalen Milroe, the improvement he's made from the start of the season to where he's at right now?
Well, I've thought about this a lot, Gary. I don't know that I've seen a quarterback take a growth spurt over a course of 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, I think since maybe the Texas A&M game, certainly, the Ole Miss game, he had some good moments, had some bad moments. But I think that Texas A&M game, you could start seeing him. I give Tommy Rees a lot of credit for this development. But in that Texas A&M game, when they went to that short passing game, he started hitting those throws. He got rhythm. You started seeing Jalen Milroe starting to feel himself. He started to gain confidence. And I think each week, even though he's had some mistakes, he's continued to get better and better and better. And now in the LSU game, when they implemented his legs, I mean, this is really starting to take off for him. Hopefully, he's just at the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely. He still can get a lot better, too. It's scary what this team is doing week to week in terms of improvement, Rodney. All right, now it's time for Coach Talk. Saturday is Senior Day. 23 seniors will be honored before Alabama's game against Tennessee, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. At Monday's press conference, head coach Nick Saban not only talked about the appreciation and the commitment that the seniors have shown, but he also spoke about younger players and the pitch that he makes to them to want to stick it out, to become seniors instead of getting into the transfer portal, even if they're frustrated with their current status in regards to playing time.
We've had all these freshmen who want to play as freshmen. And we've had, I don't know, you can count them up. How many guys have gone out early for the draft? So if it's 45 guys, I don't know if that's the right number or not. I've had 32 phone calls times 45, whatever that number is, in the thousands, right? I've never been asked once how much a guy played as a freshman. Never. Not once. Everybody wants to know, what did you develop into?
Rodney, it's a great message. It's one probably that 10, 15, 20 years ago you didn't really have to deliver. The anticipation was that when you signed a young man, most of the time they were going to be in your program and become seniors. Now that's not the case, as he just said. And I think that was another message to these guys. Look at our program. Look at our team. Look at the way we develop guys. Look at our record in the NFL. Man, if you'll just give it a little time and get bigger, stronger, faster, your moment or moments will come.
Well, I think if you look at the development of Milroe, that's a guy that's been in the program 3 years. I mean, obviously, it's not quite what you're talking about. He knew he was going to sit behind some players. But I'm going to tell you something I saw Saturday, Gary. When I saw Ty Simpson come in the game, I see a big difference in him.
I did too.
He's developing in practice. He's developing in maturity. I think the way he carried himself in this game was a lot different than what I'd seen him in some of the previous games. I understand he came in late in the game. It was decided and all that. But just his body language looks different.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can even get better here at Alabama in practice, because you're usually practicing against guys that are better than a lot of time the guys you'll play against on Saturday. So keep that in mind, younger players. All right, let's move on to this Saturday. We can't, we look at the Iron Bowl, we look at the SEC Championship, but there's a game this Saturday. It will be Senior Day, as we mentioned. 23 seniors taking part. Kristen Story and Trey Amos are not taking part, which means I guess that they could be coming back next year. But the Chattanooga Mocs are from the Southern Conference, which is a great conference. This is a really strong tradition in football. Remember, Bill Oliver used to be the coach there at one time. And clearly Alabama is a huge, huge favorite. Let's go ahead and take a look at some video here if we can. And as we break down this game coming up, the Mocs are 7-3 on the year. They've got a couple of close losses. This is a team, Rodney, that has an Alabama connection with Lorenzo Whammy Ward out of Greensboro, former player for Alabama under Bill Curry, and well, I guess Ray Perkins and Bill Curry. He's now the defensive coordinator there at Chattanooga. I'll say this about the Mocs. They play these big-time schools. They're going to come in here and compete. They're not going to be overwhelmed. They'll come ready to play.
They will. They will. And you know, Gary, you look at them offensively, they've got a quarterback he's pushing 3,000 yards as a passer. He's around 2,700 yards. You know, they can move the ball offensively. They average over 400 yards a game. I looked at some of their numbers earlier today. They're averaging over 31 points a game offensively. And, Gary, they're only giving up 20, which really isn't bad.
Not at all.
Not at all. So, no, they're definitely a team that will come in, like you said, and compete.
And we'll have our score predictions coming up later on in the show.
I will be committed to the University of Alabama.
And over the weekend, the Tide landed 2025 five-star edge rusher Zion Grady out of Charles Henderson High School in Troy. Like I said, one of the top guys in the 2025 class, 6'4", 230, chose the Tide over, how about this, Florida State, Georgia, and Auburn. People that you definitely want to beat out on the recruiting trail. Ronnie, I know it's another year away, but this is a young man. We know affecting the quarterback is a high priority for every team. This is a guy that's got the ability to do it.
Yeah, and you look at some of the young guys they have here now. You got Johannes Pierre, obviously. He's a young player that they recruited. Jeremiah Alexander, Keon Keeley. I mean, we could go on and on with some of the young players that they've recruited on the outside. Zion Grady, of course, as you mentioned, is a five-star rated player, one of the top players in the country. But you look at this class right now, Gary. They've got 5 guys that are from the state of Alabama. We talk about recruiting the state. Now, one, of course, plays at Braden IMG Academy down in Florida, but he is an Alabama guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're really getting the top players from the state in this class. It's the #1 class in the country already. Again, it's really, really early, but they're off to a great start.
And real quickly, a couple of specialists that are coming in as well. And these are usually preferred walk-ons. Tucker Cornelius, the kicker from Northridge High School, and Jay Williams, the snapper. Rod, special teams with Coach Hutzler. They're doing well in the recruiting trail too.
Yeah. I mean, you know, again, this is where you find these guys that, you know, they're in these camps, Gary. A lot of these specialists, they're you have successful kickers that you can find as walk-ons.
All right, still to come. On Tider Insider Television, the Alabama soccer team advances to the second round of the NCAA tournament. Also, both basketball teams off to hot starts. And a little bit later on, we'll be getting to your phone calls, your emails, and your tweets. The number is always 205-348-WVOA. That's 348-9882. We'll be right back after this. And welcome back to Tider Insider Television. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. I know the glasses come on and they go off. You know, it depends on what I'm thinking, I guess. But we're going to talk Bama basketball, and we're thinking that Nate Oates has got another really good team. Roddy, Tide off to a fast start. They're 2-0. They scored 105 against Morehead State in the opener. They scored 102 against Indiana State in the second game. And both of those teams are pretty good teams. Aaron Estrada has come in here and just been dynamic. Also, Grant Nelson the same way. That's what the transfer portal affords you. It affords you an opportunity to restock your roster. Oates does it with the portal and a combination of great high school recruiting as well. Rodney, this is a really talented team. Now, he is already harping on defense. We got to defend better, but when you score 207 points in 2 games, they host South Alabama tonight at 7 p.m. over at Coleman Coliseum. This is another really talented team.
Man, I tell you what, exciting team.
Yeah.
A team that can load it up. I mean, this is going to be one that the fans are really going to like because, like you said, they can score a lot of points. And, you know, obviously they're going to have to be really strong defensively once the SEC season gets here. But really exciting what we've seen so far.
And the Alabama women are off to a 3-0 start. They've been really good so far, too. Listen, Christy Curry has established this program as an NCAA tournament program. Now the next step is to try to compete for the SEC and to get into the tournament as a higher seed so you can make a run. But they're looking good early, and they will play South Florida on later on this week on Thursday night inside Coleman Coliseum at 6 p.m. Well, we know that the Alabama women's soccer team last year made it all the way to the Final Four, Rod, and they are cruising in the NCAA tournament again. They won their opener last Friday night, 2-0 here in Tuscaloosa over Western Carolina to advance to the second round of the NCAA tournament. Bama now will move on to Lubbock, Texas, to face number 3 seed North Carolina on Friday. It's going to be a tough one, but boy, Coach Wes Hart has got something happening here with Alabama women's soccer. 3 straight NCAA tournament berths, including a Final Four last season. Well, still to come on TITV, it's that time of the week. Bama in the NFL is coming up next. Plus, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, your emails, and your tweets. Again, that phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. We want to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation. We'll do that next, right here on TITV. It's Bama in the NFL time. We can't mention everybody, but we try to mention a good number of the guys. Najee Harris, how about this? He punches it in for the Steelers. Man, the Steelers win more close games. They beat the Packers 23-19. Najee had a good day on the ground and had that touchdown as well. In Seattle, Commanders quarterback Sam Howell escapes pressure, and who does he find? Brian Robinson, who's become a heck of a wide receiver. 51 yards later, B-Rob's in the end zone. Tough loss for the Commanders, though, against the Hawks, 29-26 on a final play of the game field goal. There were 6 final field goals in the NFL over the weekend. Jahmyr Gibbs, once he got started, man, you can't stop this guy. Look at the speed, Rod. They clocked him at 23 miles an hour on this run. He got knocked out at the one, but he would score on the next play as the Lions beat the Chargers. And, again, that's just a sampling of all the guys in the Alabama in the NFL for this week. All right, welcome back into the show. Let's get right out to the phone calls. And Putty over in Alabaster is going to lead us off. What's up, Putty?
Hey, Gary. Hey, Rodney. Hope y'all are doing great. And I wanted to ask a question about the 2024 recruiting class. I think we have 20 commitments, and we're number 5 in the nation, and I don't know if we'll be number 1, but I would like to hear exactly what we can expect.
Well, I mean, I think I assume you're talking about how they finish. And again, there still have several guys out there. I mean, obviously, the number 1 offensive tackle in the country, Jordan Seaton, is one of the top players in the country at IMG Academy. I think Alabama's right in the middle of that, and they've got some running backs they're looking at. Kejuan Lacey, we talked about him last week. Gary's a guy out of Lancaster, Texas, that was here on a visit a couple of weeks ago. He's a fantastic-looking running back, was formerly committed to Nebraska, but he's got guys looking around. Daniel Hill from over in Meridian's another running back they're looking at. You always want defensive linemen. With Texas A&M, with that situation with Jimbo Fisher, does some of their guys jump in the portal? Do maybe some of the guys they have committed, Dylan Evans, for example, who's from the state of Texas, committed to Texas A&M that Alabama's recruiting. He's supposed to visit here in December. Maybe he gives Alabama a stronger look. But again, I think you do need some defensive linemen to finish out this class.
All right, let's go up to Northport and talk to Scott. Hey, Scott, good evening.
Hey, Gary, and how y'all doing?
Hey, good, man. What you got for us?
Oh, how come they didn't review that play of that touchdown? Alabama had that fumble football.
Yeah, Scott, you probably don't. I probably don't need to answer this. I've caught some heat from a couple of local officials said I've been too tough on them. But I don't know any other way to put it. It's the play where Christian Story knocked the ball out. Rodney, I call it lazy officiating. It's late in the game's decided, and they were just like, play it on. I think it should have been reviewed.
Oh, I definitely think it should have been reviewed. I saw with the left knee look very close, but again,
take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's worthy of a review.
Yeah, I mean, it's late in the game, but it's still the game, and it led to 7 points for Kentucky. So, Scott, I think they should have reviewed it and at least taken a look at it. All right, we'll be back with more phone calls and emails. Keep it dialed in right here. It's Tider Insider TV. All right, let's get to our email question of the day. It's brought to you by KDM Service Corporation for all your heating and air conditioning needs. KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. Why do fans give Coach Reeves a hard time? I believe he's a bright young coach, JR, here in Tuscaloosa. I think JR, because early in the year, the offense was struggling. Let's just be honest about it. That's the way fans are. He came over from Notre Dame, 31 years old. I don't hear as many fans giving him a hard time now, Rod.
I think he's done a fantastic job. I really do. I mean, the way he's developing this offense. And, Gary, last year, what we hear a lot about the receivers not getting open and all of this. Looks like he's got some really good designs out there to get the receivers open.
Yeah, he's doing a heck of a job. All right, let's get on the phone line. We're going to take one more call from BT right here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, BT.
Hi, Gary. Rodney, how are y'all doing?
Doing well.
I'll ask a question about, do you think we might see more other guys in there this Saturday?
Yeah, BT, I think they would love to get their lead guys out there, get the game in hand, and then hopefully in the second half play a lot of these young guys.
Yeah, I was thinking back, how do they usually do this? And a lot of times we see the starters go into maybe the first series of the third quarter, early in the third quarter, if the game is going as hoped. But again, I think you have to take care of business, BT, and hopefully you do that. Remember, was it a couple of years ago? Who were they playing? Citadel? It was tied at halftime?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Or whoever it was.
That was one of those was a 10-horn game, right?
Yeah, that was Georgia Southern.
Yeah, Georgia Southern. But yeah. All right, yeah, struggling at Citadel that year too. All right, we're going to get to a Twitter question from Goal Line Stan. How can Alabama's offense continue to improve before the SEC Championship? Should it begin preparing for UGA now? It's a great question. I think this week you got to listen. You don't overlook Chattanooga. Nick Saban's already said that, but I wouldn't be shocked if they took a look at some Georgia and Auburn stuff this week, Rodney.
Well, listen, you're right, and they do this all throughout the season. I mean, they work for future opponents, and no question about that. I mean, certainly I think they will spend a little bit of time on that.
All right, thanks for the phone calls, the emails, and the tweets. We've got another segment to go, and you know what time it is. It's prediction time for the Chattanooga game. Am I going to shock the world and pick Chattanooga? No. We don't even need question marks.
You wouldn't survive that.
I wouldn't. We'll be back after this. Well, J.C. Alabama men's golf coach, has won 2 national championships, played for 2 more, got a chance to win it in the spring of 2024, and he's building for the future, too. How about this? Michael Crocker, Nick Gross, and William Jennings have all signed letters of intent with the Crimson Tide. It makes up the top-ranked class in the country, according to collegegolfcommits.com. So this is a top-notch class. Alabama men's golf got a chance to keep on rolling. All right, Rodney, as we come back in, it's prediction time, and as usual, you lead us off. Can the Mocs make a game of it?
Well, I think they can. I mean, like I said, if Citadel could do it a couple of years ago, but no, I really think, Gary, this is going to be really, this is an opportunity for Alabama. Like we said, you want to keep that momentum going, and I think they will. I've got it 48-6.
All right, Rod. We don't rehearse our picks. We don't ever talk about them. We do it straight up. But I'm with you in this game, and I guess we're going to stay right here. I think that Chattanooga is going to be game. I think they're a good football team at their level. I think early on, they might make it respectable. But over the course of the game, Alabama's going to wear them down. It's just too much over 4 quarters. So the Crimson Tide is going to win this one. They'll wind up winning at 45-6. Oh man, that's very, very close. But and then in the second half, as we said earlier, maybe you get a chance to play some young guys, and then immediately turn your attention to the Auburn game, the Iron Bowl for next week. All right, that's going to wrap it up for TITV. Thanks for tuning in. A reminder: you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 on WVUA 23, or find it anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Good night, everybody.